1959, my colleagues and I had first to establish our integrity and credibility. All we ask for is an honorable relationship between the state and the central government, a relationship between brothers, the younger and the elder, not a relationship between master and servant.
Having gone through 2 years of Malaysia and communal tensions and communal situations, that changed people's minds.
You know, every time we look back on this moment when we signed this agreement which severed Singapore from Malaysia, it will be a moment of anguish.
It was our 2 years in Malaysia that taught the people of Singapore the lessons of life. They understood then what it was like to be trapped in a communal situation, and they therefore resolved, however difficult, they're going to go it alone and try very hard. Without that spirit, we couldn't have made it. If we took independence as a matter of course and continued behaving as we used to, strikes, go slows, taking liberties with the employers, taking liberties with ourselves, we would have failed.
It is the duty of the leadership, whether in the unions or in the government, brace the community to face these problems created by withdrawal of British shore installations. We are agreed, both the unions and the government, that this problem must be faced in an intelligent way to minimize dislocation and maximize the opportunities for civilian conversion. As far as the unions are concerned, I say how you conduct this thing is a test first of your loyalties to union officials who have taken Singapore citizenship, whether you're throwing your lot in with Singapore, and secondly, your good sense. What happens from 71 till the middle 70s, more or less half of you or your members will be out of jobs by 71.
If, in fact, there's going to be a rapid and accelerated rundown to a point where our security is jeopardized, then obviously some vast sums of money will have to be spent in an accelerated expansion of our own meager defense capabilities, radar network, missiles, land to air, of course, purely defensive. And, the Japanese are very hard-headed businessmen, and when they go into business with us, as they have in shipbuilding and ship repairing, they want us to go at least 49% government investment to their 51%, in order that they can be sure nothing will go wrong. And if we've got to put 49%, that means we may have to take out that money, which we have in London, and put it into yen and go into business with the Japanese. I mean, these are the hard facts of life, but this is not a threat. This is a fact of life.
Vice Premier Tim Xiaoping. My name is Kuan Yew.
Very happy to meet you.
Chinese Singaporeans have had their own different experience and history. However short this may be compared to that of their ancestors in China, it has made them different. More important, they are in the midst of ensuring a separate and durable future for themselves in Southeast Asia. And this future must be shared equally with Malay, Indian, and other Singaporeans. Naturally, China's industrialization will affect the whole of Southeast Asia, and so indirectly influence Singapore's future. However, Singaporeans have come to recognize that just as they cannot afford to sacrifice their national interests for China, so they cannot expect China to sacrifice her national interests for Singapore. The most crucial components, besides the economic, seeing the problem clearly,
is whether you can get the workers and managers, but primarily the workers, to accept the changed circumstances, accept the sacrifices that must be made, and press on with the solutions. Now, it so happened that this has taken place with also new union leadership. Therefore, even if I were to take charge of this and do it my way, I have to take into account the different circumstances amongst the unions. Not only a younger generation of workers who have not known hardship, for them life has been one continuous progression to better times. I hope younger Singaporeans will understand that certain facts for Singapore don't change. Nobody owes Singapore a living. There are no free lunches for us. If we don't pay our way, we don't sell our goods and services, that is the end of us.
Prime Minister.
Well, my job doing things has really been done. There's nothing more I can do. The last task that I have to discharge is to have a government in Singapore that's able to do the job as well, if not better, than what my older colleagues and I have done.
Ladies and gentlemen, the papers of Lee Kuan Yew can be viewed outside the ballroom after this ceremony. Now, aside from the precious and historical texts, what you must look out for are rare historical photos that have been thoughtfully placed throughout the volumes, and these will definitely help transport you to the time and place of Mr. Lee's speeches and interviews. Not enough can be said about our next guest on stage. As the first Prime Minister of Singapore, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew has witnessed and been at the helm of historical milestones of our country, from self-government in 1959 to independence in 1965 to our transformation to a modern city. It has indeed been an eventful journey, to say the least. Wouldn't you agree, sir? On a personal note, we also know that our guest of honor just celebrated his birthday exactly 2 weeks ago. So congratulations, Mr. Lee. We wish you good health and happiness and know that you will continue to inspire us. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please join me in warmly welcoming on stage our guest of honor, former Minister Mentor, Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. We look forward to your address, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Dr. Yaakob Ibrahim, Minister for Information, Communication and the Arts. Ronald Dunn, Mrs. Ronald Dunn of Sengage. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm happy to be here at the launch of the collection of the speeches that I have made over the past 40 years. The publication, which has been carefully put together by my press secretary and the National Archives over the past year, includes my earlier speech at the Malayan Forum in London in, I think, 1945, 46. And the interviews I gave before stepping down as Prime Minister in 1990. The speeches cover a broad spectrum of topics, including my positions on colonialism, self-governance, politics, social and economic policies. They provide a detailed chronology of Malaya's and Singapore's history, and should be seen in the context of the times where the speeches were made. Whether for reflection or scrutiny, these papers capture issues and decisions that were both popular and unpopular, but necessary for the time. Singapore was thrust with independence, and as a small country with no natural resources, we had to rise up to the challenge of building a nation and improve standards of living through pragmatic and sometimes tough economic and social policies. We also had to ensure social cohesion and harmony in our multiracial, multi-religious society. Racial and religious harmony is crucial and continues to be so. Under British rule, the biggest threat on our road to self-government and eventual independence was communism. We had to deal with the threat and unify our people so that we could progress towards the ideals we hoped to achieve with our independence. Even after Singapore achieved internal self-government in 1959, the threat of communism remained. The communists had no intention to bring about a better life in an independent Malaysia, and they used the trade unions to further their agenda under the pretense of helping workers gain better wages and work conditions through strikes and riots, and we had to deal with them decisively. Against this backdrop, Singapore still faced problems with education, housing, and unemployment. We had to show that we were capable of self-government and could improve the lives of our people. It was our aim for Singapore to merge with Malaya in the early 1960s. The merger did not last. People in Singapore were prepared to do whatever it took to make an independent Singapore prosper and flourish. Following Singapore's independence, we had to quickly improve three areas to keep the country from backsliding. The three areas are national security, growing the economy, and dealing with social problems. The government set up institutions and task forces to cope with the problems. This compilation of my speeches may allow Singaporeans to understand our history in nation building, and more importantly, to learn the lessons from the past. Without firm policies on social integration, we would have been left with different social groups living in isolation with little understanding of one another. Singaporeans have to understand the underlying values on which our nation was built. It is for the younger generation of Singaporeans to bring Singapore to greater heights. Looking back, we went through a lot, from Japanese occupation during the Second World War to emergence from British colonialism, to being part of Malaysia, and then our road to independence and becoming the nation we are today. These formative years tested our determination and perseverance. The global environment has changed and become more competitive. In addition, the present generation, who are more educated and well-traveled, have different concerns and expectations. This will need to change
in the way we formulate and implement policies. However, we must be careful not to forget the lessons of our history. The fundamentals that have enabled us to succeed are timeless. Good governance, corruption-free, meritocracy, and pragmatism. Finally, thank you, and I wish you all an enjoyable evening.
Thank you, Mr. Lee.